All right, guys, so for this assignment, we will be looking at A Christmas Carol and how it relates to the Industrial Revolution. So for those of you that may not be familiar, A Christmas Carol is a novel that was written by Charles Dickens and published in December of 1843. A Christmas Carol tells the story of an older man named Ebenezer Scrooge and how he transforms as a result of these supernatural visits he receives from the ghosts of Christmas past, Christmas present, and yet to come. Scrooge is a wealthy business owner who does not value the lives of those less fortunate than him. The following is an excerpt from A Christmas Carol. So in this scene, Scrooge is in his business very near to Christmas when two gentlemen come in. We're going to read the excerpt and then you guys will complete the questions that follow. Scrooge and Marley's, I believe, said one of the gentlemen referring to his list. Have I the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley? Mr. Marley has been dead these 7 years, Scrooge replied. He died 7 years ago this very night. We have no doubt his generosity is well represented by his surviving partner, said the gentleman, presenting his credentials. It certainly was, for they had been two kindred spirits. At the ominous word generosity, Scrooge frowned and shook his head and handed the credentials back. At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, said the gentleman, taking up a pen, it is more than usually desirable that we should make some slight provision for the poor and destitute who suffer greatly at this present time. Many thousands are in want of common necessities. Hundreds of thousands are in want of common comforts, sir. Are there no prisons? Asked Scrooge. Plenty of prisons, said the gentleman, laying down the pen again. And the union workhouses, demanded Scrooge. Are they still in operation? They are, still, returned the gentleman. I wish I could say they were not. The treadmill and the poor law are in full vigor, then, said Scrooge. Both are very busy, sir. Oh, I was afraid from what you said at first that something had occurred to stop them in their useful course, said Scrooge. I am very glad to hear it. Under the impression that they scarcely furnish Christian cheer of mind or body to the multitude, returned the gentleman, a few of us are endeavoring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink and means of warmth. We choose this time because it is a time of all others when want is keenly felt and abundance rejoices. What shall I put you down for? Nothing, Scrooge replied. You wish to be anonymous? I wish to be left alone, said Scrooge. Since you ask me what I wish, gentlemen, that is my answer. I don't make merry myself at Christmas, and I can't afford to make idle people merry. I help to support the establishments I have mentioned. They cost enough, and those who are badly off must go there. Many can't go there, and many would rather die. If they would rather die, said Scrooge, they had better do it, and decrease the surplus population. Besides, excuse me, I don't know that. But you might know it, observed the gentleman. It's not my business, Scrooge returned. It's enough for a man to understand his own business and not to interfere with other people's. Mine occupies me constantly. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Seeing clearly that it would be useless to pursue their point, the gentleman withdrew. Scrooge returned his labors with an improved opinion of himself and in a more facetious temper than was usual with him. All right, guys, that is my reading of this text. We're going to scroll down to the questions. The first one is asking, what were the two gentlemen hoping to receive from Scrooge in the excerpt? What did they want from him? Number 2, a common view held during the time period of A Christmas Carol was that the poor were largely responsible for their own situation and they could change it if they chose to. In what ways does Scrooge represent this opinion in the excerpt? Explain. So how does Scrooge represent the opinion that poor people can change their own circumstances and their own lives if they chose to? Question 3, in the excerpt, the two gentlemen state that many of the poor would rather die than go to the places Scrooge mentions. Based on the information provided, or other information if you would like to Google or research, why do you think the poor would have felt this way? Why would they rather die than go to the places that Scrooge mentioned? Question 4, In the included excerpt, Scrooge expresses a strong perspective or opinion concerning charity and the poor. Make sure you answer all 3 questions for credit. Letter A, what is the overall perspective of Scrooge in the excerpt? What is his overall view of things? How does he feel about the poor and all these things that they're talking about? What is his overall view? Letter B, explain your reasoning for your answer above by referencing specific lines from the excerpt. So you need to pull evidence that supports whatever claim you made in letter A. So if you say that Scrooge's perspective is that he hates poor people, you need to find things in the text to support that response and put it in letter B. Letter C, based on what you've learned about the Industrial Revolution so far, what groups would have agreed the most with Scrooge's perspective? Explain. So try to think of any of the groups or people that you have learned in humanities, just from your own personal knowledge, or if you decide to Google and research any of the groups during the Industrial Revolution, what would they have thought? Would they have agreed with the way that Scrooge felt about these issues? 5. In the story of A Christmas Carol, Scrooge is visited by 3 ghosts, the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and yet to come. And his opinion of the poor changes based on the visions shown to him by the ghosts. In the final scene of the story, Scrooge awakens on Christmas morning with joy and love in his heart. He spends the day with family that he previously disregarded and anonymously sends a prize turkey to the Cratchit home for Christmas dinner. Bob Cratchit was Scrooge's employee, whom he treated terribly earlier in the story. A changed man, Scrooge now treats everyone with kindness, generosity, and compassion. He now embodies the spirit of Christmas. So the question is, based on the plot of A Christmas Carol, what do you suppose was the perspective of Charles Dickens, the author, when it came to the conditions of the Industrial Revolution? Explain your reasoning. So how do you think, based on the way he wrote the story, the way that he made Scrooge, the way that he made Scrooge change, how do you think the author felt about the conditions of the Industrial Revolution? Think about child labor. Think about the Native Americans. Think about how different groups were being treated during this time, and think about what Charles Dickens may have been trying to say about the way things were for people during the Industrial Revolution, the poor versus the rich, all of those factors, and explain your reasoning below. Once you're done, you'll submit all of your answers or save and exit if you have to leave early from the assignment and need to return to it in order to save your work. If you have any questions, please message me on Remind, send me an email. I will help you with any questions you may have on this topic. Have a good rest of your day.